Hello everyone, I'm Bluewhiteraven. Thanks for coming here. I just really wanted to talk about the topic of writing and writing tips, mostly because I'm a film student and I love writing. And while I might or might not spend a little too much time on fandom spaces, this is not a definitive guide. This isn't a one-size-fits-all. However, these are some things that make me go like, yeah, this person is a beginner. By the way, I'm not saying you need to write to improve or become the best you could be. My opinion on writing is like drawing. Some people just do it for fun and to wind down after a long day, and that's totally okay. Even if you do these things and writing is just like a hobby for you and you don't want to go professional, that's totally okay. As long as you enjoy writing, this process doesn't matter. So, my first point is kind of simple, yet some people get it wrong. And I also saw that in a monologue competition in my school. And it is the angst for angst's sake or sadness for sadness sake. Because there's a fine line between giving your character something that could make the audience care for them, especially in a setting like a monologue, when you have little time to just completely torture your character in every way possible. Because yes, it's a good tip that if you have short time to tell a story, try adding something to your character that could make your audience care for them, so their story has a bigger impact. However, this gets to a point where we can't compare it to the light of the character. We don't know or don't remember how the character was before all the bad stuff, and we see no real improvement, and it can get really tiring. And it could also lead to a point where your audience doesn't care anymore. This character has been through hell and worse and comes out fine, so why is this bit going to be any different? We don't care to see them get better because they are just fine as the way they are. So my tip is to avoid this. Simply don't go too hard on the tragedy of things if it's not necessary. Again, if that's what you like to write and you're doing it for fun, it's fine. I know there's the hurt no comfort tag, and I think for it to be good, it has to walk a really fine line and try to moderate what's going on the character's life and show consequences of the events or the actions. Which leads me to part 2. Not thinking about the implications. Implications are a hard thing to deal with, because as writers, we can't control what the audience thinks. This is another topic I like to talk about, but it's a completely different topic. Audience doesn't always take what your writing intends, and sometimes it gets the wrong things out of the story, or they found implications you never thought of. But what are implications exactly? They are these things that are not explicit in the text. However, one could walk out with this idea in mind after the show, the series, the TV, the book, whatever. I'd like to say a great example of implications is what happened in Steven Universe. Steven is being a pacifist. That's like kind of a flaw in his character, but at the same time it's a really important part of him. So he was likely not to kill the diamonds anyway. At least not himself. He looks uncomfortable around them, for sure, but as a character it didn't make sense for him to kill them. He has this mentality of, if you hit the bully, that makes you a bully. Not exactly, but for what I remember in the first seasons, it was something like that. And again, mostly being a pacifist. We know what the implications of that were, and we saw the consequences. Because no, sadly not everything can be solved with the power of friendship. So connecting also this to my first point, I see a lot of new writers making this mistake of not thinking of the implications. I'd say I was also guilty of that way back in the day when I first started writing. Now, I don't want you to overanalyze everything you write and think how people might interpret it, because you won't control that, and that's okay. However, when I see weird implications like, if your life is going to hell, maybe you should try to fake date your ex-abuser, and that will make your life better. I'm like, yeah, they're better. The more outlandish the implications are, the most likely I'm to assume they are beginner. Other type of implications could be the intentional ones. They're more kind of foreshadowing, showing things that might happen in the future of the series, but no one really has a problem with that. My point 3 is more kind of personal opinion. However, it's still something I'd like to address. And also, it's like a 2-in-1. This is having either too much or too little about yourself in the book, in the series, and whatever. Too much could make a character be a self-insert, which isn't bad. Self-inserts can be utilized and have been utilized in amazing ways. So self-inserts aren't bad just because they're self-inserts. However, in a fanfic, it could make a character be out of character. And usually people don't like that. If you're reading a fanfic, to set an example, you need the character to be characterized. Well, you don't need to. But when you're writing a fanfic, a lot of people read them because they want to see more of the characters. So if you stray away from that character they love, it's going to be kind of weird. That reminded me of a TikTok. This is not on my script, but that reminded me of a TikTok I saw of this girl, and she was like, when you can tell the real fanfiction was just a self-insert for the writer, because the only thing that differentiates like the submissive one from a woman is the fact that he has like a PP, and okay, you can have a PP and be a woman, so it's mostly like they identify as a man and were born a man, because you can also be a PP and be a woman, so don't be a PP. So yeah, basically just try to keep the characters as close as they are. Just in fanfiction, if you're writing an original story and you want to make a character to be yourself insert in the story, go wild. I don't think a lot of people have problems with that. I do see a lot of people saying that self-inserts are bad or this or that, but there's no way for someone to know if an original character is a self-insert. Unless you state it or unless it's really obvious, but if you don't state it and it's not that obvious, go wild, bestie. And the second part of this is having too little personal experience on the subject writing. Scenes or stories without personal experience can become extremely generic. If you wanted to write a horror beat in a circus, and you haven't had any circus experience just like me, you would probably write a really generic circus horror. Like, I would imagine maybe, oh, it's a tent and everyone's laughing, but suddenly people are gone and it's just you and the clown. That's somewhat generic. But I've recently been to a fair where there's a lot of people. Me and my friends have been afraid of getting lost, so we tried to stay really neat together. So imagine you have this story with this entity, and this entity can be, I will say, really tall, and they kind of look like a human. So you get separated from your friends and you suddenly see this entity. And you hope the entity didn't realize you saw them. So you start walking in the middle of people, getting push and pull. You don't know where to look, but every time you look somewhere you see someone that could be the entity. A tall man with a hoodie, or someone covering their face but they are really tall, so they could be the entity. Suddenly you bump to your friends and you feel safe, but not for long. You know, that looks really different, because I've experienced being in a place where I'm afraid to get lost from my friends, and I just came up with it. That wasn't even in my script. So I would say your experiences make your stories more believable, because you know how it feels to be in the place, obviously. So let's say you want to write about a fantasy setting. In medieval times, that's impossible to go back to those times, so just do a little bit of research. Or, oh, you want to write about sci-fi, and we're not 100 million years in the future. Yes, that can come from your imagination. So that's also a bit of balance. Try to balance with your experiences to make your story believable. And we are approaching the end of this thingy. But this is all I have for now. Maybe I'll do a part 2 if I get random 2 AM inspiration as I had with this topic. These are also only tips and examples, but writing is supposed to be fun. So if you want to write whatever you want to write, the way you want to write it, go ahead, be free, have fun. This is something I've learned with practice or in school, and I thought to share it with you. But remember, as I've always said, if writing is only a hobby, do it however you want. The art in the background is a commission I did for a friend. I really like the art. My friend also really liked the art, so consider commissioning me if you like the art in the background. And also, if you liked the video, maybe consider subscribing, and all until the next one. Bye!